Year 2 wide receivers are one of the most sought-after fantasy assets, and it seems like a good time to check in on the 2024 wide receiver draft class. And that's exactly what Ed and I do on this extract from this week's main show. So Marvin Harrison Jr., not what we were expecting, really, when you think about looking back to the player that was last year, ADP for rookie drafts, the 101, without hesitation. Fourth pick in round 1 of the NFL draft last year. And he's the exact example of why there is no such thing as a sure thing when it comes to fantasy football. There are players that if you didn't take at the 101, people would question what you're doing, why are you not taking that? It's a stupid pick. And he's proven that actually there's several players if you take it ahead of him, you'd have been better off at this point. This week, though, 8 yards from 4 targets in the first half and a horrible drop as well. But then made a great contested catch for a late touchdown in the fourth quarter. And that's kind of typical of what we've been used to seeing, the good, the bad, and the ugly, all in the same 4 quarters. My bold take on this, I think this area of lacking is confidence. And are we ever going to get that from Kyler Murray throwing in the ball? That's the confidence. Everyone thought it was going to be such a good pairing, and it's just not happened, has it, at all?
No, he was outshone by several receivers last year. Really, certainly 2 who we're going to talk about now. And I think there were high hopes for him this preseason, but not quite clicked yet, has he?
Next up, Malik Nabers. When I started writing these notes yesterday, it's obviously taken a horrible turn. I'd put before the injury is QB proof somehow. Like goodness knows how. And I really hope Dart is the real deal. But imagine how good he could be with a bona fide downfield passing threat. And then that devastating ACL injury, and he's out for the season. So genuinely gutting that we're not going to see him for the rest of the season. And for him in only his second year, when he looked to be one of the possible players destined for greatness at the position, really hope he is back and firing next season. Rome Odunze, most improved wide receiver by a mile this year from this draft class. Maybe being paired with Caleb Williams, who's growing in confidence. Maybe some of the other improvements in Chicago, but he's clearly Williams' favorite target right now. Wide receiver 3 overall, because he's just consistently putting up decent numbers every single week. So yeah, Rome Odunze absolutely is the poster boy of the year 2 bump for wide receivers. And I'm sure we will reference constantly next year. We go, who's going to be this season's Rome Odunze? At the minute, it is Rome Odunze. Brian Thomas Jr. has gone the other way. What's happened so far? So last year, 1,282 yards, 87 receptions, 10 touchdowns. There was a worry. Is Travis Hunter going to steal his work? That's not been the case. We were very hopeful. Trevor Lawrence has got it all in front of him now to take that next step. That's not happened yet. 12 targets for 4 receptions was odd in week 2 to be that unproductive. I'm not worried, though, yet. And much of this is kind of coming from a dynasty perspective. If you draft someone in redraft, they're not doing the business. You're not bothered about what's to come. You're not bothered about the progression. You're bothered about the points you get in this season and week in, week out. I'm not worried about Brian Thomas Jr. at this point, but if this is the picture for the rest of the season, I think he's going to see his stock massively drop.
It's T-Law, isn't it? I mean, I think the caveat we gave at the start of the season, a lot of people did, was it's reliant on T-Law having a good season. And we thought he possibly would be on course for that, but T-Law's not started well either. And his receivers are not beneficiaries, whatever the opposite of beneficiaries is.
I think for Thomas Jr., he's one that is very much in the let's see how the rest of the season goes sort of category, though, because he could turn it around still. I was worried he seems destined to get around 10 points each week at the minute, which is no good for anyone really where he was drafted. Our next 4 then. So Xavier Worthy, we can't really tell at this point. Obviously, he's been injured for most of the season so far. So it feels hard to comment on the fastest player in last year's draft class. He has individual plays here and there last year that made you take notice and finished the season strong in those final 3 weeks. So he was 19 fantasy points in a row, weeks 15 to 18. is someone that I'm still just putting a pin in for now, despite that showing against Baltimore yesterday. Ricky Pearsall, very high in the more off season, is shaping up to kind of prove us right on that. But I didn't anticipate it would be because of the number of injuries that we've seen. We know that the injuries at the 49ers were going to help him to get a role. But I think Kittle being out is a key contributor there, because he was the only real valid target challenge in San Francisco for me. He's another one. He's probably one to judge next year when he's had a full season under his belt. Other 49ers players are back and seeing what that role settles like. Keon Coleman, I don't really know what to say about Keon Coleman, because he's only scored over 10 fantasy points in 5 games out of 18 so far in the last year and a bit. We've spoken about how Allen doesn't target a particular player, instead puts the ball where it needs to be. The problem is Keon Coleman isn't ever where the ball needs to be, and certainly doesn't separate enough to be in that situation. So he just seems a bit of an anomaly still. Lad McConkey, I'm a huge McConkey fan. You will ridicule me on this frequently during the offseason when I'm banging on about Lad McConkey again, and his productivity has taken a big hit so far. However, it's obvious to see it's not McConkey based, it's not Herbert based, it's Quentin Johnston doing bits, and Keenan Allen obviously spent the offseason bathing in the fountain of youth because he's come back like prime Keenan Allen. His redraft value, absolutely, if you drafted him at cost this year, you're not happy with that, and you probably won't be for the rest of the season. But I'm not worried long term, especially from a dynasty point of view. Keenan Allen will not be around forever. Quentin Johnston, who knows? Is he going to be like this from here on in, or is he going to take a dip again? So for me, Lad McConkey is a player that if you're in a dynasty league and people are in a win now mode and want to move on from him to try to get something else in, absolutely, I would happily trade for Lad McConkey in dynasty, redraft. If I've taken him to my wide receiver 1, I'm probably a little bit concerned at this point. Who are you highest on out of those 8 then, Ed?
Yeah, Odunze has not proved me wrong. I wasn't. I just still thought DJ Moore was the target, and I thought Odunze would struggle to surpass him. And I've been amazed how quickly that's happened. It just seems kind of certain now that he's the number 1 target. Ladd and Brian Thomas are a concern from a redraft perspective, because they've been drafted very highly. They're sitting in a lot of teams as their wide receiver 1. And you'd be gutted if you'd done that. They are a concern. Out of that draft class, there's some real talent there, isn't there? Real talent there, and I think they'll all be around for a long time to come. That injury to Nabers is just sickening, really, isn't it? Because he's such a talent. Hopefully he comes back strong next year.
It just looked like the Giants are going to be really exciting to watch again. So from a neutral point of view, that's a real shame to lose him as well. Other wide receivers drafted on day 2 of the NFL Draft 2024. We have Jalen Polk, Adonai Mitchell, more on him later. Malachi Corley, Jermaine Burton, Roman Wilson, Jalen McMillan, and Luke McCaffrey. There's a clear drop-off, wasn't there, after McConkey was drafted, from what we've seen so far. But history tells us one of those players will probably end up being a force to be reckoned with at some point in the next couple of years. You always seem to have someone who has a year 3 or 4 breakout from nowhere, just as everyone's dropped him to waivers in Dynasty and has lost interest. So
guarantee that won't be Jermaine Burton.
Not be Jermaine Burton. No. I think that's a
100% guarantee it won't be Jermaine Burton.
And if I get to clip that to make you look massively wrong, you'll be quite.
I'll take that. I'd love that. Yeah.
You have been listening to the team from TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Twitter and Instagram.